Hello, this is Dr. Farley, and just wanted to create a video for you guys to help you as you are figuring out how to go from your ideas, research sources, and how you take all those things and create an outline from them. Just a few things first, some keys to success here, and these will make some sense again as I go through these ideas later. First thing you're going to do is make sure you have all your quotes and ideas in front of you as you're sitting down to write your outline. So those are your raw materials as you're starting to build, as it were. Complete each step before fully moving on, and as I go through the steps this will make some sense, but just planting that seed now to make sure that you keep that in mind. It's really important to go through the entire step and then move on to the next one. One of the things you're going to be doing is inserting your quotes as well. So from whatever sources that you have, you are going to be putting your quotes in there, and make sure you identify your quotes as you're doing your outline so that you don't have to go back to your research and try and figure out where those quotes are coming from. You'll know exactly where they're from. Finally, one thing to really keep in mind when it comes to writing an effective paper and structuring an effective paper, it's to make your point and then use your research for support. And don't let your research make your point for you. Sometimes what I see, in other words, is that students will have like a topic sentence and just have nothing but quotes underneath it. That's not adequate because it doesn't show your thinking and how you want to structure that paragraph. So make sure it's your ideas that are providing the structure, and your research and your quotes are there to support the things that you're saying. All right, all that said, let's just get into the process here, and hopefully all this will make good sense. Place we're going to start is with your introduction. So obviously you need to know what your paper is going to be about. That's going to be your topic. You want to spend some time thinking about, how do I explain this topic to my audience? What details do they really need to know to have some sort of context for my discussion? So this will define the scope of your paper, which is really talking about the things specifically that you'll be addressing, but also kind of by omission the things that you won't be addressing. So for instance, if I'm talking about civil rights or something like that, and I'm only mentioning details from the last 10 years, you're not going to assume that I'm going to be talking about what happened in 1964 or something like that. That's outside the scope of my paper, in other words. Well, the last thing you want to include is, and make sure that is captured in your introduction, is what is really important about your topic. You want to invest your reader into that topic. So you want to give us the information, you want to make your topic clear, but you also want your reader to connect to that information in important ways. So that purpose should be very clear in your intro as well. Once you have your introduction, you're going to move on to your body paragraphs. And the first thing you're going to need for those is topic sentences. And you're going to need to figure out how things are going to be fitting together at the paragraph level. For some students, this will actually be like at the section level as well for longer papers. So, you can kind of think of it in that way first, perhaps, and then move on to topic sentences. But either way, you're taking the big chunk of information of your paper and you're breaking it down into smaller pieces. So as you try and shape your paragraphs, there's a few things to remember. One, your topic sentences are going to determine the main points of your paper, and they're going to create a framework for that paper. So one of the things they're going to do is create a sort of a logical flow to your ideas, and you'll be able to see that simply by using your topic sentences to see, not only what you're going to say, which is the first part, your main points, but also how do they fit together. And that's what an outline's all about. How are things structured? What are the relationships between ideas? And as you lay things out, and you've got your paragraphs in front of you, you might be changing the order, all that kind of stuff, which is easy to do at the outline stage rather than at the writing stage where it's much more difficult. So think about some sort of logical progression of ideas, and here I've listed chronology, cause and effect, process, all that kind of stuff. Those are just sort of basic rhetorical strategies, but it could be a combination of things, but nonetheless, there should be relationships between your main ideas, your topics. Of course, once you have your topics and your paragraphs, those are organized by possibly in sections, and whatever the logical order is created, you're going to have to start filling in some detail, some support for those ideas. So again, you've got your quotes and your brainstorming notes in front of you. Figure out the different details and ideas that you've identified. Figure out what paragraphs those fit into. You could start with your notes and put them into the paragraphs. Or you can start with your paragraphs and look back into your notes and say, okay, what fits for this particular topic sentence? Both ways work. Nonetheless, you're going to start to really flesh out those main points that you're making in those individual paragraphs. Of course, minor details will follow major details. So if we're looking on a very basic level and a major detail is some sort of conceptual idea, your minor details are often concrete examples of something. It might be a quote to support that information. So it's oftentimes just smaller, more specific bits of detail that will help give some particular life to that concept. So the concept is sort of an illustration of how something might work. The minor detail is proof of that through, as I said, some sort of concrete example or quote or something like that. So once you've done your introduction, you've looked at your paragraphs, your topics, you've looked at the support you have for those in major and minor details, you want to go back to your introduction and say to yourself, does everything in my introduction fit as a roadmap for all the ideas I just laid out in my topics, in my paragraphs and the support? So in other words, is there something that I'm covering in my body paragraphs that I'm not covering in my introduction that I want to introduce my readers to? And so it's important to kind of double back, make sure your introduction is on task for setting up the reader to really understand what follows. Finally, of course, you need a conclusion. So it's very, very important to add information to your conclusion. In other words, you are not summarizing anything. You are not restating anything. You're not, in other words, just saying things you've already said. You are going to add additional information. The main thing to do is to sort of take your smaller subject and sort of add context to it, make new connections between the things that you've talked about, and things maybe you haven't mentioned at all. So if you're looking at a paper that's all about problems, say it's about sort of climate change or something else like that, and it's all about what is climate change, and these are the difficulties we're facing, and this is this problem. It's the ice caps are melting, there's stronger storms, there's all these things that come with climate change, and the very end, the conclusion, talks about how those things might be addressed. Now, we haven't talked about solutions at all in your paper. Your paper has been entirely about the problems. The conclusion is a space to connect new ideas to those. Okay, here's the problems, but we might be able to do something about it in this way, or another possibility is working this way. And you're, again, taking all that information you just put in your paper with those problems, and you're connecting them to new ideas by the use of solutions. So that's an example of the type of conclusion that is very effective. Once you've got your entire paper in front of you, you've got your introduction, you've got your body paragraphs, you've got a conclusion, you want to think and reread it, really think about the structure and the relationships between ideas. There's two different types of relationships. The first is unity, and unity is everything fitting to a central thesis. Another way to kind of think about this question is there anything that's off topic? In other words, is there anything that's not applicable to your thesis? If so, then you can make some changes there. Coherence is a different idea. It's about how the ideas are relating to each other. So, if I have points A, B, and C, they shouldn't sort of appear as a list. There should be something that A has to do with B and B has to do with C, etc. And so that way your ideas flow well together. So it's important to go through the entire process, as I said. So one of the first things you're going to be doing is your intro. And the way that you can do that is to think about what's my paper as a whole going to happen. And one way to kind of think about this is to think of it as a sort of a pie chart here. And we've got some sections. So your whole paper is this big circle. What you do from that, once you've figured out what your paper is, your intro, step one, you're breaking it down into smaller pieces. As I said, for some students, that might be sections. So in this case, maybe sections 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then what you're going to do is take each one of those individual pieces and break those down into smaller ideas. And for section 1, for instance, up there, maybe there's 5 paragraphs for section 1. And additionally, you'll take each one of those paragraphs and figure out, how do I break this down into more information? And then you're adding in the details. So just to kind of, again, go with an example here, say my paper topic is about solutions for climate change. And I have 4 sections there. First one is curbing fossil fuels. Second is increasing renewable energy. Third is decreasing deforestation. And fourth is introducing a carbon tax. So I have my overall topic, climate change solutions. I've discovered 4 different solutions I want to go into. Those are my sections. And so I've broken those ideas down there so I have a clear distribution. And you can see here, your sections don't always have to be equal. You might have a lot more information on one than you do another. That's not a problem. So say I took section 1, which was about curbing fossil fuels. I'm going to have to break that down into paragraphs to explain that. How do I explain curbing fossil fuels? I've got these 5 things. So say I've got these 5 paragraphs here. The first one is about industrial power, shifting away from coal, for instance. The next one is about increasing efficiency of our transport, say miles per gallon in our cars. The next one's about buying local food and other products in which shipping distances are much smaller. I have a 4th paragraph about a more efficient manufacturing, which is using less energy in that sector. And also I have a paragraph about remote work, which is reducing commuting and also reducing airplane flights for meetings and other sorts of things. So here I have these 5 ideas which demonstrate specific ways in which we can curb fossil fuel consumption. And so, and this is the way you do your outline. You have all of your ideas in front of you. Climate change solutions. What am I going to say about this? Well, I found 4 things. All right, well, I've got those 4 things. How do I explain those 4 things? And you take those individually. All right, I've got curbing fossil fuels. What am I going to say about that? I've got these 5 things. All right, now I've got these 5 things. I got a paragraph about transport efficiency. What do I have to say about that? And then you put those details in there and your paper really starts to shape up. So I hope this illustration is sort of helping you walk through what this might look like. I hope these steps are useful, and I hope the ideas here, although I've gone through them quickly, are all clear. It's important in a research paper that you do take the time to think about what your paper is going to be about, and your outline is the place to make that happen. So really invest the time into thinking about what your paper is going to be about in your outline, and it will save you enormous amounts of energy as you're sitting down to write. All right, everyone, thanks for listening, and I hope this is helpful.